Guys, we gotta have an important talk. That's why I got the toilet paper here. We gotta talk about estrogen. And why it plays such a vital role in your hormones and who you become. Okay, but no, seriously, estrogen is really important, guys. And a lot of you young dudes, you're not really too concerned about estrogen, I see. Sometimes it's more important than testosterone. Yeah. Wow. But let's talk about that. All right, so let me start by giving you my experience. I did 23 years training very hard, very 100% naturally. The last 2.5 years, I've been on TRT, mild doses of DECA. I have some other experiences with some other minor things. Okay, but all right, being on TRT for the last 2.5 years and experimenting with some blasts here and there and experimenting with adding DECA in, which does aromatize a certain amount, and I've crashed my estrogen really bad. I've crashed it and I was a mess. And I have also neglected my estrogen to the point where I was sweating through my sheets every night. So I have experience with both high E, low E, and perfect E. Now my protocol is doctor regimented. So it's prescribed to me by my doctor and yada yada yada. But I do my blood work 3 times a year, if not maybe even 4, just because I like to understand why my body's reacting to certain things. I like to check test an estrogen and see what my levels are and to see what. Guys, your blood work is so important, and it's also something that you really should be getting done at least biannually. Now, estrogen. My doctor prescribes me Arimidex for my estrogen, my AI. Now, I've heard a lot of old school guys talking about Novadex, adding in Nova like on your cycle all the time and taking it all the time, like 1 tab a week. That's an old school thing. I don't really know if that's good or bad. I don't see why you would do that. But your AI aromatase inhibitor varies so much from person to person because of our natural hormone levels, our adjusted hormone levels, and our exogenous hormone levels. You need to really pay attention to yourself. Not asking everybody else, hey bros, how much AI do you take for 500 test, 300 DECA? No. You've got to figure out your responses to the estrogen aromatizing, and you've got to kind of pay attention to it. So for instance, I would much rather have high E than low E because when I've crashed my estrogen, it is like all out depression to the point where you almost feel a little suicidal. I hate to even say that word because of, rest in peace, but it can lead to a very, very depressing state of mind. Now, high estrogen, I don't get that depression. I don't get that down feeling, but I sweat through my sheets like crazy. When my E is high, I'm sweating all night long in the middle of winter. So my temp runs higher on high E, but the amount of AI that each person needs is so completely individual where the doctors judge it and they say, okay, here's my suggestion, which typically I've been hearing they're giving out insane amounts, way too much for guys on test. I personally crash my E pretty quickly. So for instance, right now I am on 750 test, 600 DECA. And I needed to judge my AI based off of my previous TRT dosage, which was, for instance, my TRT protocol is 250 tests a week, 200 DECA a week. Now that, for me, is a very good balance. But I used to do just 80 milligrams of DECA for my back before I went and had my spinal fusion 6 months ago. Okay, long story short, my doctors had suggested that at that dosage for TRT that I take 0.5 milligram of Arimidex with my pin, so twice a week. And I would say that was okay for me, but I didn't really have any extreme feelings one way or the other. I didn't feel like I crashed my E, I didn't feel high. So I guess I was right in the middle. Now on a blast, when I was at 500 test, 300 DECA a week, I was taking 1 milligram twice a week. So upping my 2 dosages, my 2 pins a week, upping the AI by 0.5 milligram. So 2 milligrams a week to accommodate for 500 tests and 300 DECA a week. I would say that was a little much. So I did feel a little crashed, but I was still within range. But my blood work always came back within range. That's the thing. Over time, I would get the estrogenic side effects without it really fluctuating my blood work. So I could feel my estrogen a little high or a little low while my blood work still came back in range, because my estradiol's always been within range. But there's a few digits of play here and there. So my current protocol right now is 750 tests a week, 600 deca. I've just started that 2 weeks ago. This is the highest I've ever gone. It's the most I've ever taken. And I'm not really, I guess it hasn't really kicked in too much because it's only been a couple weeks since jumping on the blast off of TRT. But according to bro science, a lot of people use the 250 test rule. 1 milligram a week for 250 tests, 2 milligrams a week for 500 tests, 3 milligrams a week for 750 tests. You see what I'm saying? So 1 milligram of AI, Arimidex, to every 250 cc's of test a week. I don't know if that's a good idea, but a lot of people say that's a general rule of thumb, or so I've heard. But at 750 tests a week with 600 deca, I started to take 1 milligram of Arimidex with each pin, and I'm pinning 3 times a week. So that's 3 milligrams of Adex a week, and I crashed, like right now. Like the last couple of days, I feel crashed. I can tell. Because I've only been on the increased dosages for 2 weeks, so that would be 6 pins. And so within 6 pins, that's 6 milligrams of Adex. Now that was suggested to me with a general rule of thumb. Clearly, that's too much. I don't need that much because I can really feel it. So tonight's pin, I just didn't take any Adex. I'm going to pay attention to how I'm feeling tomorrow. I'm going to let it kind of even out over the next couple of days, and then I will adjust accordingly for the next pin. But your body needs estrogen. You don't want to crash your estrogen because that has a lot of negative side effects. So listen, the best thing that we can do is share experiences from one person to the next and respect each other's experiences, because that's the only way we're really going to learn. I loved growing up with the old school guys. I loved learning how to train old school bodybuilding. I loved learning about old school gear even though I never took it, and I wanted to. I definitely wanted to, but I just never did. But fortunately, I grew up around a lot of coaches, mentors, and that's the route that I went. So I'm Adam. I just had a spinal fusion 6 months ago. I'm trying to get back into the swing of things and put on some weight. I'm trying to get involved in PEDs, and I would like to achieve the physique that I've always wanted, which is close to Frank Zane, but it's my time now. And I'll just add this for you now. I've been shot at, knifed twice. I've been in gang fights, jumped, beaten. I grew up poor. I lost function of all my organs in 2003 when they all stopped working on me, and I lost 53 pounds in 2 months and was given 2 months left to live. I was in a major car accident like 9 years ago where I lost function of my right side, and then 6 years ago I got hit by one of my dump trucks, cracked my skull, bruised my brain, gave me a major brain injury. That's why sometimes this eye doesn't open quite as much. And then 6 months ago I just had a spinal fusion. I've got 6 kids, I've got 4 companies, and I'm just trying to get through life. See y'all in the next one.